best darn show on the internet, on the
Interwebs.
interwebs. What's up, Quiet Sparky Bear? The Over Sharon Show. I'm excited. We are live. What's up, Sharon? How are you today?
I'm good. I might be hearing some feedback, so I'll keep my headphones nearby and just in case.
Oh, was it from maybe from your speakers? Is your Zoom is set to the highest thing, right? Background speech. Well, while you check that, I will read today's quote.
Oh, shit. Sorry. I forgot to lower the volume on the
Oh
on the
shoot.
on the iPad.
Oh,
No, but that's
no
not what it
worries.
was. That's not
I
what, but
didn't
yeah,
I
it's
didn't
fine.
hear it.
I'll look while you read.
Cool. All right, everybody. Today's quote is the basis must be knowing, and true knowing is faith. You cannot conjure faith. You cannot play the idea of it, but you may align to it. And the alignment to faith is an act of will. That's the guides through Paul Selig. So I believe it's channeled work from a group known as the Guides, channeled by Paul Selig.
Oh, interesting. I wondered. I really did wonder if that was a channel because it sounded like it could be.
Yeah, I looked it up to see exactly so I would know for the show. And I love the quote because we were talking about will, and this is something you guys are going to hear about next week in our 99th episode. We already recorded most of it. We just have to finish up a little bit because I had a time constraint yesterday, and we're going to be talking about the Oversharing show, back to basics, all that fun stuff. So look for that. But in this quote, I love it because it says, "And the alignment to faith is an act of will." So it's telling you there that you have to get your will. You have to kind of jumpstart it. Or you have to get it going
Mm,
with your
yeah.
own will all by yourself.
And on that kind of note, similar thought process, but I was watching and I sent it to Brandon too. I don't know how far he got. I hurried and finished it so I could be done with it by the time we recorded right now. But it's Dr. Robert Gilbert being interviewed by I don't remember the guy's name in the channel, but we can put the link in the description. Um, but it was really a really good interview, and I highly recommend people checking it out because I just feel like he says a lot of things that resonate with me and the way I kind of view things. And I love it that he's very much like I'm not your guru. Like I don't claim anything. I'm living walking this path just like you. And it's like I'm your brother or sister on the path. And it's kind of like Ram Dass said, we're all just walking each other home. So that's what I love about him. And he doesn't claim to be like a spiritual guru. He talks about that, in fact, in the episode in two spots, like one toward the beginning and then one toward the end. And so I really love that. But there was a lot of stuff in there that was very just awesome to listen to. There was one spot in there toward the middle end of it, and it's about the Luciferic and the Ahrimanic principles in the Rosicrucian concept of them, which I had heard about these things, a couple of years ago. I had never heard about them before that. I mean, you always hear Luciferian stuff, but like it never made sense to me because, especially because people mix up Satan and Lucifer all the time and those principles. So and no one had ever explained it. Like I listened to a Crow episode one time where some dude was trying to explain it, or like even Crow maybe was trying to explain it, and it made no sense. I'm like, I still don't get it. And this guy made it like I understood and it makes sense to me. And on that note, too, I'm reading a book called Theosophy and Christianity that I found. I just was like looking online for stuff and I just happened upon this book and It's not a very long one. It's like it's pretty short, but I'm like maybe halfway through it. But it's it's like so good too. It's awesome. It's the same stuff that Brandon and I talk about too. Like you know, it's not about, and that's what I liked about Dr. Robert Gilbert too, is because he was saying stuff like this too. It's not about like choosing one path or one way and like being so hard about, oh no, it's this way and there's no other way. It's like there's so much out there that we can explore in so many different ancient ideas and ways of looking at this world, this realm, this life that we're living, that we can like find our way through it by just, studying other people's ideas from the past. So, and a lot of people seem to be doing that these days, is what he was kind of saying. But anyway, that's another book that's kind of interesting, and I've posted it in our chat. But I might also share that link. But anyway, those all good things. I'm gonna pull a card unless Brandon has anything to say.
Yeah, while you pull a card, I did watch the video. I watched the timestamp that you provided for a while, and then I went back to the beginning. I didn't finish it yet though, so I didn't see the part that you were talking about specifically with the Luciferian thing. But one thing he said that I really love is he was talking about the spiritual practices from the East and how they migrated here to the West, and how a lot of people do these spiritual practices, but they don't do them in the right context. And it's like a bottom up spiritual practice where they start
I
from like the root
loved that
chakra.
explanation.
And when you open that up, yeah, it's crazy because it sometimes when you open that sacral energy from the root chakra, it just affects you in different ways. And if you're not exactly attuned or ready, then who knows? Not like it's going to be a bad thing or you're going to go crazy, but you might come back into escapism or something, or you might get involved in another form of like sexual escapism or something like that. But he's just, every center I think has that pitfall that we're not really aware of, because
If you
in
didn't work through those things, if
yeah,
you didn't
even in the
really,
Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna was talking to Arjuna, there's a lot of assumptions that were already made between Krishna and Arjuna. Like Arjuna is already ready to go. He's like on the path. He's already kind of doing his dharma. He's just ready for the next step. So when we live in this Western culture, and then all of a sudden we come across this idea from the East, and then we try to apply it, it might not work right. But I like how he said the Rosicrucian practice that he uses. It's like
it's
the
more
basics.
balanced.
Yeah, it's more balanced, and it starts with the heart, and it's all about
Yes.
really observation, like watching yourself throughout the day, watching your thoughts, watching your actions, and keeping compassion for people, which I think is
And
awesome, because then if you open your heart center, it's much easier to work on everything else, because then you have compassion for certain things that come up. You're not judging yourself or others because of it.
and it's crazy because that's what we're going to talk about on the next week's episode. But yeah, when he was talking about the
Yeah.
top down versus the bottom up, he was saying like
The
I
top
think that
down with the Christians. Yeah.
the top down was the Christians, and the East does the bottom up. So like
Yep.
they'll do like the base chakra, which that's what I'm associating with, kind of, because that's what, like, the life force and the um energy and action and everything, right? That's that center. And people who work on that but don't work on that first, and then they think they can just go up, it's not very balanced. And then the people like the Christians who work on this, like, more of like a mental, I'd say, plane, or I can't remember what he called it, but that is like also imbalanced, because it's just like you think you and he explains it later, in which made way more sense. It's like I can't even explain it. It's awesome. But anyway, so that's imbalanced too. So that's why in the Rosicrucian tradition, he says that they start at the heart, which is the balanced part, and then you work from there. You can work on everything else. So
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the difference between the East and the West. I almost said the Est. The East and the West. So the East starts bottom up, West, the Christianity is kind of top down. And you see that when you go to some of these churches, people are experiencing things with the Spirit. They're speaking in tongues. They have this feeling, and it's coming right from the top. But the issue is they don't have a base, right? They're not grounded in reality. So when they leave this setting, this church setting, all that stuff kind of goes away until the next, mass or next church session or whatever.
Mm,
And the East is like totally opposite. So yeah, it is really interesting, and I think that's one of the
wow.
reasons why some of there's like such a difference. So people from the West, when they encounter stuff from the East, it like blows them away and it works for them. But unfortunately, sometimes they get stuck in those new age traps, and I could see a new age
Well,
trap as being bottom up.
what he talks about later is how it's not one or the other. It's a
Yeah,
balance of both.
yeah, yep,
So like once the people that are like, oh, the East has the answer, they think that's the answer. And so they only do that. And it causes people to get into this like, and he talks about this like ego, like spiritual ego, right? Instead of because then but they haven't finished working on their like on their lower chakras, on their, that's he doesn't say that, but that's how I am interpreting it because that's the words I have right now. But yeah, it was really an awesome interview.
yeah. It really makes you think about the different types of spirituality, quote unquote spirituality that are out there. But one thing that I like too is, and we always talk about this, is Ram Dass, because I feel like he came out of that stuff where they encountered the Eastern stuff and they went a little crazy, but he kept going with it. And if you listen to some of his lectures, he'll talk about how he encounters the joy now of coming back to like Christianity and looking at it and seeing the
Yes.
living spirit and even Judaism and stuff because he grew up as a Jew. And now he's looking at it with new eyes and it makes more sense. And yeah, I think that's the way. I mean,
Absolutely.
choose your own way, right? There is no way, but
Right. Well, and then he also talks about how like the middle path, right? He talked about that, but he
mm-hmm.
also talks about how, you know, we're all going to do this. We're all going to veer a little to the left and then we're going to notice it. We don't he makes a quote that he talks about, but anyway, he says we don't notice it till we've passed the line. And so like you don't notice that you're off the center path until you're already past it. So, but it's okay. You just find your way back and you may
Yeah,
cross the other way too, but then you find your way back. So it's like, it's a balance, you know?
you got to cross a boundary in order to make that boundary, right? You got to. That's why we like to say everything in moderation, especially moderation, which you guys will definitely be talking about next week as a tenant, because it is so true. Because if you don't know for yourself and have that knowing, like in the initial quote that we brought up in the beginning of the show, if you don't have that knowing for yourself, you're just depending on someone else. So then there's always that doubt in the back of your mind. That's when you don't have the faith. And if you go ahead and do something and you're like, oh, that's, like a kid, right? Don't touch the stove, it's hot. And they're like, all right, I'm not gonna. And the whole time they're just thinking, I want to touch it, right? What if there's
Mm-hmm.
something there? And then they touch it and they're like, fuck that. They get burnt and it's just forever. They have that knowing. Nope, we're not going to touch the stove, right?
Yeah.
It's the same
So
spirituality. Go ahead, go ahead.
absolutely. So I pulled a card from the I Ching, and it's funny because it's called After Completion, but it's number 63. And 64 is actually the last card. For this one to be called After Completion is kind of interesting.
Mm.
I think I've pulled this for myself before, but I'm trying to get it so it's not reflecting anything. But anyway, it's almost like a little volcano. It says water above, fire below. And I'm just going to read what it says. It is a fine irony that after the completion of a project or grand enterprise, there is still much to do. Completion is merely a pause in the cycle of creation and decay, a momentary still point for the swinging pendulum of life. Though completion implies a period of restful pause, one that has been well earned, it is not an actual ending. It is a harmonious flat spot in the constancy of change and movement. Like the still point between the inhalation and exhalation of one's breath. Ooh, I like that.
Mm.
One image of the after completion hexagram is that of a kettle of water boiling over a fire. When the forces are balanced, the water boils properly. When the pot is too full and boils over, it puts out the fire. If the fire is too hot for too long, it can evaporate all the water. In maintaining the equilibrium that follows the completion of an arduous task, forces at work in the situation must be monitored carefully to ensure that a proper balance is maintained. This is a time for fine-tuning, a time for refinements and embellishments of what has been accomplished. Even as we enjoy a rewarding situation, the laws of the natural world dictate that influence and success must eventually decline. Don't let your current good fortune give rise to adopting an attitude that is too careless or relaxed. Whatever is successful or already established needs to be carefully maintained without trying to expand it right now. What is incomplete should be brought to fruition without delay. Then take satisfaction upon completion and enjoy a sense of fulfillment. Do not linger too long on endings. That's cool. It kind of reminded me of the balance talk we were talking about.
Yeah, I like that. Balance, balance, balance.
Indeed.
I mean, we're talking about the Tao in these episodes, so I think balance is like one of the number one things that they really talk about in the Tao. So it's cool to see it across these different,
Yes.
different like the Tao and then the what is it called? The I
Um,
Ching. That's it. The Tao and the I
oh,
Ching.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if they're based, one is based on the other or they're kind of based on similar principles, right?
Yeah, I think it's similar Chinese principles. One path, yours. Hiya. What's up, Zero Left? What's up, Blue? What's going on, everybody? How you doing? Saying what's up to the chat.
Indeed.
All right. Well, I guess we could bring up the Dow. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we got into it? I mean, I would just tell everybody go check out, make sure you check out next week. Let's try that again. Next week's episode, which we've recorded most of it already. And like I said, it's like a back to basics, like an oversharing for beginners kind of thing. And I really enjoyed it. So you guys are going to love it, I'm pretty sure. And if you know someone that's new or is into these ideas or whatever, this will be a perfect episode to send to them. And you'll see why when you watch it. All right. But today we're going to be talking about the Dow verses 35 and 36. So I'm going to bring up verse 35. There we go. So I'm going to start reading the Stephen Mitchell from 1988 version. Verse 35, she who is centered in the Tao can go where she wishes without danger. She perceives the universal harmony, even amid great pain, because she has found peace in her heart. Okay, music or the music or the smell of good cooking may make people stop and enjoy, but words that point to the Tao seem monotonous and without flavor. When you look for it, there is nothing to see. When you listen for it, there is nothing to hear. When you use it, it is inexhaustible.
Awesome. I will read Dwight Goddard. I was gonna make a funny comment about maybe that's one reason why people think we're boring.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
which I don't care about.
No, exactly. But we'll get into that in the breakdown for sure. Because this is one of the verses that I've always, well, a lot of these verses stick with me, but this part, the part, but words that point to the Tao seem monotonous and without flavor. That's one that really stuck out to me a lot.
Yeah.
So I have a lot to say.
All right. Well, we have Dwight Goddard's version from 1919. He entitles it The Virtue Day of Benevolence. The world will go to him who grasps this great principle. They will seek and not be injured. They will find contentment, peace, and rest. Music and dainties attract the passing people,
Nice.
while Tao's reality seen is insipid. Indeed, it has no taste. When looked at, there is not enough seen to be prized. When listened for, it can scarcely be heard. But the use of it is inexhaustible. Interesting that they both use that same word.
Yeah.
And I think dainties means anything, because I looked up another word that
Like fancy pants?
it's food, I think. It's a delicacy of food or something like that.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I think
Yeah.
Aleister Crowley uses a different word, and I looked that one up and it said dainty after that. And I was like, what?
Mm. All
So,
right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, Stan Rosenthal from 1984, The Benevolent Host. The wise man acts at one with the Tao, for he knows it is here that peace is found. It is for this reason that he is sought. Whilst guests enjoy good music and food, as these are supplied by a benevolent host, a description of Tao seems without form, for it cannot be heard and cannot be seen. But when the music and food are all ended, the taste of the Tao still remains. Oh, that's kind of poetic there. I like that.
hmm.
Oh, I didn't highlight it. Sorry, everybody. But we read, that's what I just read, just in case you're following along. And now Sharon's going to read this one. There we go.
All right. Aleister Crowley entitles this The Goodwill of the Day, which is virtue. The whole world is drawn to him who hath the likeness of the Tao. Men flock unto him and suffer no ill, but gain repose, find peace, enjoy all ease. Sweet sounds and cates, which are the delicacies, like choice food, is the definition,
Oh,
lure the traveler from his way. But the word of the Tao, though it appear harsh and insipid, unworthy to hearken or to behold, hath his use all inexhaustible. That at the end is a little bit confusing to read.
yeah, it's like that old English stuff that
It
Aleister Crowley's so good
could be,
for.
yeah.
Could be. Now, let's see. We'll make some comments here. I do like how most of them say inexhaustible. And I like how they kind of all stick to the same theme about like music and food, because I
Yeah.
feel like that was probably really part of the original interpretation or the original writing of the Tao. If it came through in four different translations like that, that's really the power of taking four of them and looking at them, breaking them down.
Yes. Absolutely.
Let's see. I can bring this up. We could break it down. Break it on down. All right, so I'm gonna break down the first part. Oh, no, we're gonna go. Yeah, that's right, Stephen Mitchell. Okay, I zoomed up. She who is centered in the Tao can go where she wishes without danger. All right, so we've talked about ideas like this before with fear. So if you're centered in the Tao, you don't have to have any fear. Wherever you're gonna go, there's gonna be no danger to you or maybe to your spirit, right? Maybe your physical body will encounter some danger, but if you're centered in the Tao, I mean, I'm sure physical danger would probably stay away from you too most of the time, but definitely that inner spiritual danger or harm of worry or whatever will stay away from you if you're centered in the Tao.
Mm-hmm.
And she perceives the universal harmony even amid great pain. because she has found peace in her heart. I like that part because amid great pain, what are we all faced with here in this physical realm? Pain, physical pain, emotional pain, all kinds of pain. So even though she, he, we, any of us are amidst great pain, we could still find peace, right? Universal harmony because we found peace in our hearts. And that's kind of a synchronicity for what we're talking about with opening up to the heart chakra and working on that with that video
Mm.
from
Yes.
earlier. And that's, it's great because then when you're working on other stuff, you still have peace because you have the understanding and compassion for yourself, which is super important. We always talk about the golden rule and doing unto others. We do say that you have to love yourself before you can love others, but what does that actually mean? You have to be able to have compassion and understanding for your own behavior and not shame. There's a reason why you engaged in this behavior, and maybe only you know the reason, but if you have compassion and you don't judge yourself for it, and I think that's like the first step to working through it.
Oh yeah, there's a section in that interview with Dr. Robert Gilbert where he talks about um tips for how to help people who are trying to give up some sort of addiction. And the first thing he says is don't try to stop it. Just become aware of it and your thoughts surrounding it when you're doing it and how you feel and all those things. That itself is going to be probably a huge catalyst in helping you.
Yeah. Another thing I love that he says too is oh, did it just like leave my mind? What you said was great, so I was thinking of it and then it ran away. It'll come back to me. But it was really good talk. It He does dispel a lot of stuff. It's like a lot of stuff that we talk about on this show. Basically, we're just doing it in more of like an everyday person kind of language, right? Just breaking
Mm-hmm.
it down for the plebes, for everybody like us.
I'm a
Uh,
plebe.
uh what was he? What were? It'll come back to me. It's fine. All right, so let me bring this up
Read the
here.
next one.
Yeah, I'll have you break down the next section.
Have a little notepad or something ready so you can write it if you remember, and then you can
Yeah, yeah, I really should. I usually used to do that all the time.
use your iPad for that. That's what I do.
Yeah, that's
I
a good
just
idea. I
have,
have my phone right here too. I can text it to myself.
yeah. So I'll read Dwight Goddard. The virtue. Wait, did we read every single? Yeah, we did. Wow, that went by fast. Okay.
Hmm.
Dwight
I do.
Goddard,
That happens to me all the time. Like, wait, we're here.
the virtue
As
or
long as
day.
one of us knows, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of benevolence. That's how I am. Sometimes I'm like, oh wait, oh I'm glad he did that because I would have totally done, I've totally read past that. All right, the virtue or day of benevolence. Dwight Goddard. The world will go to him who grasps this great principle. I wonder if that should be will go to he who grasps, but I don't know. I got to look at my grammar again. All right. They will seek and not be injured. They will find contentment, peace, and rest. Wow. The world will go to him who grasps this great principle. Well, the principle he's talking about is day, which is virtue. So if you grasp this virtue, um,
Of benevolence.
yeah, you'll find contentment, peace, and rest.
And I feel like it's also like a preamble to the next part of the verse. If you grasp this great principle coming up, like get ready for it.
Right, because I don't because he doesn't say anything yet, right? He's
Yeah,
kind of prepping.
I like it. And I remember what I was going to say too about um, the video that we watched where what was his name again?
Robert Gilbert.
Dr. Robert Gilbert was saying, and this isn't obviously, he's like us. He's like an aggregator of information, right? And he even says that too. But he said that the way that certain people look at things, especially consciousness, is that when you're not aware and you're not like being fully aware in the moment, then you're actually like sleeping. It's like a dream. You're kind of on autopilot. And this is what we talk
Oh,
about
yes.
all the time, like
Yeah.
evacuating your cockpit or whatever, right? And I feel like, you know, it's so funny because people grasp, because the person I heard all this from was James True at first, right? With the evacuating your cockpit and the pit and the pedestal and all this stuff. So it seems like he has a great grasp of this concept of like explaining it to people, but then, you know, maybe in his own life he doesn't put it into action, you know. I don't know, maybe I don't want to talk shit about anybody, but it's the same thing though. Like, so if you're not totally aware, you're basically dreaming. And that's why, and what you said was addiction, right? Because you said that the advice that he would give for people, that know people who are addicted to stuff, is to not try to just stop right away, but to observe, to be aware of your own behavior. And that really is the first step, you know, like, and that's what I'm going to be working on, you know, the things that I want to kind of cut out of my own life. I'm going to be like, all right, I'm just going to try to stay present. And it's like, well, why am I doing this? Why am I going right for that? Or whatever it is, right? That gets you addicted. Like, what is it that I'm fulfilling? What need? Um, and it's funny because you know how, well, we're gonna kind of Quentin Tarantino this, right? We're talking about things you're gonna hear about next week, but we already recorded them. It's like out of order. But we talked about needs, and I talked about nice guy syndrome and how a lot of men, and I'm sure it happens to women when they're younger, they will mask their own needs and they won't meet their own needs. They'll sacrifice that to try to help others meet their needs. So this way they don't seem like a pain in the ass. And in plain English, all it means is they just kind of, anything that they want to do or their opinion, they just stay on it and keep it all inside. And they just basically spend their life people pleasing because they want the people around them to not go away. And then eventually what happens is it leads to like this huge anger outburst a lot of times. I'm sure it could be expressed in other ways as well, but anger is one of the big ones because you're not getting your own needs met. So we were talking about this in the show you guys will see next week. And yesterday I was driving to Elizabeth's dental appointment with her, and I was talking about going to the woods because afterwards she was thinking about maybe going to the chiropractor or somewhere else, and I had forgotten that her dentist was the other way. It's like 45 minutes away, but it's the other way. So on the way, I'm like, oh yeah, we're not going to be, we can maybe hit the chiropractor. So I told her, I go, but let me tempt you with something. I'm like, what if I promise you a back rub later and then we go hiking? Because I know this really good hiking spot. And I'm like, I got needs. I'm like, I got to satisfy or meet my needs or whatever it was. I got to go in the woods. It was so funny. I went on this whole thing. So we ended up going in the woods. It was pretty cool. But yeah, it's so true. You should be aware of your own needs. And it's not about putting your needs first over everybody or everybody's needs first over yours. It's really about attaining a balance. And if you find yourself, like if what I said makes sense to you and you're like, oh shit, this is what I'm doing, well, then maybe you should take some time and just focus on your own needs and screw everybody else for a while. You know, like take that time. And it really goes along with the whole thing where, you know, when you're working on this stuff and you become aware of it, you start to get hard on yourself, and you get mad when you're not living up to the expectations you have of yourself, and you have to be nice and take it easy on yourself. So it goes along with that too. So I say, if you're listening to this, then reward yourself with something. You know, you're working on this, you're doing this work. So maybe tonight, I don't know, order food, go for get the dessert, go for a hike, you know, smoke a joint, whatever. Some kind of pattern breakings, break the pattern, something that you don't normally do, but do something good for yourself, and don't feel guilty about it. And I feel like that really is one of the big keys. And shout out again to Michelle Albers, because she brought that concept into my field of view. She was like, you know, you got to be easier on yourself. And I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't never thought about that. I was always like a slave driver to myself, you know?
Yeah, just going back to that Robert Gilbert thing, I thought of something again. But the way he describes something remind or the way he described the Luciferic versus the Ahrimanic stuff reminded me of something that I read in that Theosophy and Christianity book. So he was talking about how um you have the Luciferic and the Ahrimanic, and the Luciferic is actually like light, the light bringer. So that's like the spiritual, that's like the spiritual ego type side, right?
Hmm.
Whereas the other one's the base nature, the material. So the spiritual versus the material, which is what you and I talk about all the time. So but it's a balance. It's not like going toward only the only the Luciferic is good, or only the Ahrimanic is. It's neither. It's a balance, right? And that book that I'm reading, Theosophy and Christianity, kind of touches on that, but it doesn't say that. It's talking about how um the the whole way that Christianity kind of gets it wrong is when they demonize, the fall of man, right? When it's all part of the process, it's all part of the plan, right? We're meant to come into this realm. We're meant to forget, take that pill of forgetfulness, or whatever it's called, the draft of forgetfulness, and experience what we're going to experience, and fall and do things maybe wrong or bad, or quote, right?
Cool.
And
You
but
don't want
that's
to be
all.
bad because that's bad. Like Ram Dass says, he's like, you want to meditate because it's good. You don't want to not meditate because that's bad. It's so funny.
Yeah, so it's all part of the plan. You can't rise to some level of consciousness, a better layer of whatever level of consciousness, if you haven't fallen to the pits and recognized, that side of things, right? It takes that, it takes the fall to rise. So it's all part of the plan. And then we've also talked about how, I think it was with the episode with Bootsy Greenwood, where he talked about when you get to the age of 40, that's like, what was it that he said? Like, it takes people about 40 years to get to a place of like recognition of, like, just being like, okay, I've done all this stuff. Now what? Like waking up to stuff and recognizing that maybe all that stuff was material. Maybe I should, you know, try to figure some stuff out, right? But that's all part of the plan. That's how it works. That's just how it is. So demonizing it is just retarded. It's just it's just like ignorant to do that. And
Literally
so anyway,
retarded. Like slow down in your thinking. Yeah. Which again, there's nothing wrong with it. That's what you want to do. But yeah, and it's funny because all these concepts have always been around. Like these books are so old.
yes.
They've always been around, but there's no ever really major movement of this stuff that exactly what we talk about. A lot of people are doing it. A lot of obviously are on their own path. And I guess that's why it's like that because it's all about like selective paths. But I could see that also it's not really an attractive thing for people to try to get into and teach and study and well maybe study but like teach and make a living out of it because there's no real trap, there's no hook to set people in it. So you can't, I mean, you could build a following, but it's not like you could just become an overnight success with spirituality, with the stuff that we talk about, because most of it is stuff that people don't want to hear. you know, it's those uncomfortable truths. And I think I saw a quote recently, something like that. And it was like, I can only handle so much truth or something like that. It's probably a meme that I saw. It was like, you can't, I can only take so much, but
Yeah.
yeah, but it's
There's
there, man. That's the thing. There's no excuse for any of these uh for not doing the work, I guess. But again,
yeah.
we're not judging people for not doing whatever, but it's not like this is new. It's not rocket scientists. We're not like, oh, we
No.
just made a major breakthrough. It's like, no, people
It's
have
the
been
ancient wisdom that's come back, that
yeah,
people
yeah,
are
yeah.
finding again. Um, there's a part in that interview where Dr. Robert Gilbert talks about NLP, natural language programming processing, something like that. I can't
Yeah.
remember the
Uh-huh.
exact terminology. Um, because I think I was mixing it up with something else that was also called NLP, but he talks about how if people actually used NLP for the light, you know, for good purposes, then people would actually be aware of how they're being programmed. Because what it's being used for today is what he said. And I mean, I didn't even know this, but I thought it was fascinating. Is people are using it to exploit people and tell them what they need and how they need to buy it and where they need to, all this stuff. And if they taught it the right way, they would teach humanity how to not get trapped into that. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is one of those things where it's just been around forever because I feel like people that are born into like royal bloodlines or elite ruling bloodlines and stuff are taught a lot of this stuff, even if it's not like conscious, but it's more about, when you interact with somebody. Because usually if I meet somebody, I try to be like nice and get to know them and all this stuff, but they're actually like psychologically analyzing people when they meet them and then kind of just like I guess they would say like a psychopath does, right? You just try to fit in,
Yes.
but they act toward them in the way. I'll just basically say they figure out how to manipulate this person to get what they want out of them, and it could just be a friendship or whatever it is, but they learn like their personality type, even if they're not aware of personality types or whatever. But they might instinctively because of the way they were raised and taught be able to know these things, and then it's just reflected in our culture. Like look at all the advertisement and stuff that we have, all the commercials that are everywhere. I mean, everything's a freaking commercial these days. Like you're watching a show
It's
and then all
so
of a sudden
annoying.
they're like drinking Coke and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, is this a Coke commercial? Like what's going on here? I thought we were watching a nice show on Netflix or whatever. But as long as you're aware of it though, that's the thing. There's that one step where there's like the anger, right? And you get mad at it. You're like, oh, they're trying to control. But you could, I guess, overcome that and just see what it is, and then you don't have to let it affect you. And it's not like you have to point it out every time. I like to was always like pointing it out, but then I felt like I was a buzzkill, like
Yeah. Victimy. It's victimy.
yeah, yeah, it could be very victimy, yes.
Um, Z pointed out that it's neuro linguistic programming. So I
Oh,
screwed it up.
thank
I
you,
knew I
Zero.
was
That's
like mixing it up with something else.
that's why our fan base is such a good part of the show because they help us when we start to overshare. Because we don't always study everything. We just like to run and gun with things that we find and overshare about.
Yeah, indeed. Would you like to go to the next
Yeah, let's do it.
verse
I was
or
thinking
the
the same.
next same verse but next translation?
The benevolent host. So I'm going to read the first part here from Stan Rosenthal. The wise man acts at one with the Tao. So it's reminds me a lot of. Here, I'll scroll up. What we see here in the beginning of these right here. She is centered in the Tao, can go where she wants, kind of stuff. She, of course, Stephen Mitchell uses he and she.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's go back down here. All right. For he knows it is here that peace is found. It is for this reason that he is sought. So he's basically telling you that when you're centered in the Tao, people are gonna seek you out for the information that you have or just your vibe, right? I think that's really what it is. I've noticed in my own personal life that when you just have this vibe about you and you put it out and nothing is really flapping you or everything's just all good, people really are attracted to that. And then the ones that aren't just flitter away. Like people come up to you with all their problems. And once you start saying, you can accept it and empathize and witness, but then once you start saying things like, oh yeah, well, maybe it's going to work out for the better, or maybe, some people just start to float away. They're like, I'm not getting any energy here. Like, and they just, but some people are open to it, which is really cool. And that's, I think, how it just, as we've said in the past, and we might say next week with these demons and negative entity beings that are out there, you just show them love and light and they just go away. And I think that works too for people, right? Somebody is trying to give you a hard time or whatever, or assault you, or who knows, just trying to sell you some shit. You just give them some love and light. Just start talking to them about Jesus. Be like, oh, you ever heard the good news about Jesus Christ, and how he saves? And they'll just be like, I gotta go. And be like, yeah.
That's hilarious.
Brother,
Uh,
let me tell you about the message. All right. You want to read the Aleister Crowley part?
oh yes. I was going to just quickly note that
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
let's see, Stan Rosenthal says it is for this reason that he is sought. So people look for him. But when I was reading Dwight Goddard, it says, okay, hold on, never mind. It says the world will go to him. Okay, so it does. Who grasps this great principle? Got it. They will seek and not be injured. So they will seek information from him and not be injured. Got it. Okay. I didn't realize I'd read that way. So yeah, so they're saying the same thing. Okay, I'll read Aleister Crowley. It's entitled The Good Will of the Day of the Virtue. The whole world is drawn to he who has the likeness of the Tao. I have to rephrase it. I can't do it. The world is drawn to he who has the likeness of the Tao. Yes, men flock unto him and suffer no ill, but gain repose, find peace, enjoy all ease. I feel like Aleister and Dwight are saying very, very similar things here.
Yeah.
Maybe they referenced each other or talked to each other, but I don't know. I don't know that they did.
I think it's definitely plausible that Aleister Crowley read the Dwight Goddard version because it was out in 1919, and then also because of the time. They're right around the same time period too. So not only are you going to have the same words,
Right, because of the ether and the energy and the frequencies.
yeah, but yes, and you might even have some of the same ways that people look at things, because in the collective consciousness, sometimes certain things are looked at a certain way, and most people just kind of look at them that way. If you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's just something in the air around that time.
Ah.
Yeah, I like that. All right, let me read the second part of the Stephen Mitchell version here. Music or the smell of good cooking may make people stop and enjoy, but words that point to the Tao seem monotonous and without flavor. When you look for it, there's nothing to see. When you listen for it, there's nothing to hear. When you use it, it is inexhaustible. I really like that. Music or the smell of good cooking may make people stop and enjoy, but words that point to the Tao seem monotonous and without flavor. And it really is like showing again this physical and
Materialism.
spiritual. Yes, the material and the spiritual, right? So most people are going to be drawn to this material thing, and it's funny because people are like, oh, it's the worst time in the world right now, this is the worst. Well, excuse me, back when Lao Tzu wrote the Tao, people were still focused on material things. It was just a different world. The material was different. You didn't have cars, and well, who knows what the heck. I mean, maybe they had.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know, but
they might have had Vimanas
yeah, you never know. Could have had
in
some
India.
flying cars. Yeah, it's right next to China. Why wouldn't they have them too?
Right.
But again, it's really highlighting the materialism here, and the
Mm-hmm.
spirituality, and how all these things are great, but the Tao seems monotonous. And just like you said earlier, Sharon, it's what we say. It's like the superpower of our show. People just get bored. They stop.
And
They
that's
don't
how
like
we
it.
know. That's how we know
Yeah,
who isn't ready.
exactly. And then here, I think I'll touch more on the we look for it. There's nothing to see when we start talking about other, because it's like a contradiction, kind of like a what was the word that we like to use? instead of
Paradox?
contradiction. Yeah, exactly. It's like a paradox. You look for it, there's nothing to see. You listen. So it's another one of those. It reminds me of that verse from Matthew. Blessed are you that heard these things. So many wise men have tried and failed, and you're the one who's able to hear it. It's the same kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? If you try
Yeah.
to listen, or if you try, there is no try. Yoda says it, right? That
Yeah.
lovely little green Japanese guy Yoda in that movie about space. And that guy with his who kissed his own sister. Star Wars, everybody. Yeah, there is no try. There's do or do not. So, all right.
Yeah. Something you said made me think of something, then it flew out of my head. Um, anyway,
Well, if it comes back, let me know. Here, I'll highlight this for you.
I may remember, I may not. All right, Dwight Goddard, verse 35, second half. So here it goes. Music and dainties. Again, dainties, and I think cates, which Aleister says, are basically like choice food or delicacies. So music and dainties attract the passing people, while Tao's reality seen is insipid. I don't know why there's a hyphen there, so it's kind of confusing. Indeed, it has no taste. When looked at, there is not enough seen to be prized. When listened for, it can scarcely be heard, but the use of it is inexhaustible. And again, Stephen Mitchell and Dwight Goddard both say inexhaustible. I think it's funny because, like I said, when I put these together, I didn't, well, I guess Aleister Crowley also says it, but sometimes these parallels are interesting.
Yeah, especially when they use the same word,
Yeah,
because there's so many other words you can use to express what you're
right,
saying in this language, right? The English
right.
language. Ingles. The other difference here, a little bit of a difference that I like is, Stephen Mitchell will say, there's nothing to see, nothing to hear, right? Here he says,
Not
not
enough
enough, right? So there
to
might be
be
something.
prized.
Yes.
Yeah.
So people might
It's
catch
not
a glimpse
worthy.
of, we're not worthy. They might catch a glimpse of the Tao, but there's not enough there to interest them. It's like,
Mhm.
well, that looks pretty cool, but I'm gonna go eat my hot dog over here. Like,
Yes.
I don't want that healthy food.
Oh my God. That's
All
funny.
right, let's see what Stan Rosenthal has to say. Yeah, but it is true. Like there still is a little bit there, right? But just not enough to be prized. All right. Whilst guests enjoy good music and food, as these are supplied by a benevolent host, the description of Tao seems without form, for it cannot be heard and cannot be seen. But when the music and food are all ended, the taste of the Tao still remains. So Stan Rosenthal went a little bit of a different direction here. He's kind of saying the same thing, but it's a little more. It's kind of a little more poetic, I think, which is
Mm,
a little different for
it
Stan.
is more
Usually,
poetic.
right? And I like
Hmm.
it because he's really building a picture in your mind here. And basically he's saying
All
you
is
can have
mind.
some yeah, you can have
Just
some guests and you can entertain them and give them food and good music, but the Tao isn't going to be, you could talk about the Tao with them, but it might not be as cool. They're like, what about that food? Those were, how about some more of that food and music? What you're talking about with the Tao here, it doesn't have any form to me. It doesn't have any like appeal or something I could see myself doing. There's no reward that I can see for it. And I feel like that's what we talk about, like do it till you're done. When you're out there in the world and you're engaging in all these actions like this escapism or whatever it is, and you're enjoying it, then the Tao isn't going to seem cool to you. I remember reading books when I first got onto this path, and I was talking about this one guy who became a monk. He used to be like a womanizer, and then he became like a Buddhist monk, and he just swore off sex and never had it. And I thought to myself, like, I wouldn't want to fucking do that's crazy. And then I went, like 3 almost 4 years being celibate, by my own choice, So it's like a couple years later, I was like to the point where I was like, oh
You're
yeah, this
basically
seems
the
like a lot
monk.
to do. Yeah, yeah. I just was like, oh, I guess I'm gonna do this now, So it
I
is,
will try that.
yeah. It's like you never know, right?
Yeah.
But music and food, those are the keys, right?
Yeah. I like the end how he says the taste of the Tao still remains. So it it's always there, and it'll be there when you're ready.
Yeah,
So
and that's if the people aren't ready, they're enjoying the music and the food, and you kind of show them the Tao after, like you said, or like the verse says, the food and the music's all done. They're leaving. They're at home. They're about to go to sleep. They're gonna think about that. What you said about the Tao, it's gonna like run in the back of their mind,
they might,
um,
yeah,
right? Yeah, it
if
might.
they're, if they're
That
ready
taste
to
is
think
still
about
there.
it.
Yeah, I mean, they might not focus heavily on it, but they might be like, huh, Brandon might have been onto something here, and then might it could, of course, it could take them a while, obviously, but
Yeah. Just
all
seeds,
right,
planting seeds.
exactly.
Yeah, all right. So verse 35, Aleister Crowley, second half. Sweet sounds and cates, which are delicacies, lure the traveler from his way, but the word of the Tao, this makes me think of the word of the Lord, the word of God. But the word of the Tao, though it appear harsh and insipid, unworthy to hearken or to behold, hath its use all inexhaustible. That ending is weird. I don't know what that means. I don't know how to
Yeah.
grammatically interpret that.
Well, let's see if we can break it down to make any kind of sense. So I like the beginning here because he's saying traveler. Because what are we? We're all on our dharma,
We're
right? We're
mere
all on our path.
travelers.
We're all
Yeah.
travelers. So of course, sweet sounds and cates lure us off of our way. So we might be going along the way, and then we hear some great music and food, and we get lured off the way. So that's the physical, right? Again,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about physical, but then the word of the Tao, which would be spiritual. So he's going to make a comment here. The word of the Tao, though it appear harsh and insipid. So, of course, right? You're reading the Tao for the first time. It says the world is perfect. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
What are you fucking kidding me? It's terrible out there.
Yeah.
So, but the word of the Tao, though it appear harsh and insipid, unworthy to hearken or behold. So that's how he's describing the Tao to these travelers.
It might sound like harsh because it's telling you about balance and you don't want to be balanced. You want to be material. It's
Yes.
saying, too much food or too much drink or too much delicacies, that's, maybe calm down a little. And you're like, no,
Yeah. And you know
that's
what? I think
harsh.
the overlying theme of this verse that I'm seeing is that they're telling people that the spiritual path isn't enticing to people because, like you said, there are no immediate material. There's no immediate material gains to be had. If you're going to go out there to eat, if you overeat, drugs, sex, whatever it is, there's that rush when you're getting what you want. And that's when you feel fulfilled, in the moment anyway. But it doesn't seem like there's any of that with the spirituality. But of course, like we were talking about earlier, right? If you go to a Christian church, and you're a little confused and you have this moment, the spirit opens up and you're crying and you're speaking in tongues and all this stuff, you're feeling great, so you have that reward there maybe, but it's harder to see the spirituality of the Tao because in Christianity, that form of Christianity that I was just speaking about, the prize is like, oh, you're going to be saved, so now you don't have to worry about dying because you're going to go to heaven. So you have that gift. Whereas in this
And yet
spirituality,
people are still afraid of dying.
yeah, yeah, of course. I don't
Like
want to go to heaven yet.
I'm just thinking like too, like they're, crying and speaking in tongues and having this whole thing. But I'm just like, yeah, but what does that do for you? You know what I mean? Like, does that really fulfill you? Is that really a sense of fulfillment for you? Because it's kind of just like the cates and the sweet sounds and cates, it's like temporary. It's just a temporary thing.
Yeah, you're having a spiritual experience from a physical worldview, a physical,
Exactly.
so
Good point.
you have this materialistic based worldview where you see everything, and then you go have a spiritual experience, and it's great. But the thing is, most times you're like, oh, I can only have this experience in these four walls at the church with these people around me playing this music. So you have this uh pull to go to church because you feel like that's the only place. Whereas, I mean, even in the Christian faith, you could find plenty of things probably in the Bible that will tell you that God isn't just in this house. You know what I'm saying? Like God's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
it's a great verse. I like it. Okay, so we finished that. Oh, and then okay, so
Has
coming back to
use.
the Aleister Crowley, I'll even bring it up because I think I'm maybe there deserves to be a hyphen or something. So right here, but saying but the word of the Tao, and now he's explaining the word of Tao, though it appears harsh and insipid, unworthy to hearken or behold. So even though it appears this way, the Tao hath his use. It has its use, all inexhaustible. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I get what it's trying to say.
Yeah.
It just used a weird way of saying it, a very
Yeah. How dare you?
esoteric and occulted way of
Well, to be fair, he was it was published posthumously, so he was already dead. So he can't even be like, no, that's not what I was saying.
Oh, true. Good point.
Oh, and didn't
Way
you
of
want to say something about Alistair also?
Sure.
You want to
So
say that now?
yesterday I was just like curious. I was like, I'd never really looked up his name, like him and who he was, knew his name and stuff. And so and the Wikipedia says that he was born Edward Alexander Crowley in on the 12th of October 1875. That makes him a Libra like me, dare I
The what
say.
of October? The 12th?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Um and he died December 1st, 1947. That's not uh germane to this topic, but
I have a
anyway,
friend that was born exactly 100 years in one day after, because he was born October 12th, 1976. Wow.
wow. That's crazy. Wow. Um so 101 years later.
100 years in one day.
Oh,
101 years in a day. Yeah, you're right.
wait.
101 in a day. No, 101 years. Yeah, I had that
101
wrong.
years,
Exactly 101 years. Yeah.
right? It's okay. I was like trying to
I'm the
figure out
math
the math
expert,
in my
right?
head too.
Yeah, you're right.
Um
That's cool.
yeah, so his name was when he was born was Edward Alexander. I didn't read enough because it's a big post, but I didn't read where it says why he changed it or anything. But um he went by Aleister, as we know. So I was like, oh, what is Aleister? And I didn't even realize that um it's related to Alexander. So it's from the root name Alistair, Alistair or Aleister, or whatever. It's the Gaelic form of Alexander. And get this, it means defender of mankind. Isn't that interesting?
Pretty interesting. I
Yeah.
mean, if you just take the demonization of him, and then you also take how the world is inverted, and then you take what his name means, it could mean a lot. Of course, we're not saying he's the savior or he's Christ or
No,
Jesus, or
we
we
don't say
don't
that
put him on
about
a
anybody.
pedestal. But if he's referring himself as that, then maybe he had different intentions than a lot of people think. But who knows? Again, I do like his version of the Tao.
Yeah.
So, and he did
Um,
make a really cool tarot deck.
and his name, that's what his name was anyway, Alexander. It's just his middle name, Edward Alexander. So it's like him choosing to go by the Gaelic form of his middle name,
Yep.
you know? It'd be like if
Alistar.
I
I like that. It's
yeah.
like a
It'd
star.
be like if I chose to change, modify my middle name and go by that.
Yep. 100%. And I'm sure he had an idea of what it meant too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Other
With
people would be like,
him,
oh, that's,
I'm sure there was a reason and a purpose, which I have not read about yet. But yeah.
and that would leave other people to be like, oh, that's because he's the Antichrist. Like he
Yeah.
thought he was. That's all right.
Speaking of the Antichrist, that show Good Omens was hilarious. I just really enjoyed that. Thank you for the tip. I didn't watch
Yeah.
the second season yet, but
Okay.
just even the first, I liked the first season. I'll just say I didn't
Yeah.
know.
No, the first season is good standalone by itself, and then the second season is cool. It doesn't have all the same characters, but the main characters are basically the same. You get the angel and the demon guy. So yeah,
Yeah, I
it's an
heard when I
interesting
read,
look.
huh?
No, I was just saying it's an interesting look at all these ideas of theology and what could be going on and all that stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I concur. It's just it was just thought provoking, But I heard that the first season kind of sticks to the book, but the second one is just completely like made up, like not even part of the story. So that's
I
probably
could see
why
that.
it, yeah,
Yeah, I could totally see that.
yeah. So, all right. Sorry, we went off topic for a second there. Um,
What's going on with our chat? Any interesting what's up, Tony? I looked up the word bonanza. What a cool word. Yo, Brandon. Yeah, you like that? The reason I chose bonanza back in the day, I was looking for a name that I could name my channel. It really started with the YouTube channel. And I wanted something because my first name was Brandon with 7 letters. So I wanted another B word with 7 letters. And Bonanza just fit. I mean, I love the show Bonanza, but also Bonanza fits kind of what I do because it's like a virtual cornucopia of different skills that I offer. There's like this spiritual stuff, there's the humor, the podcast, the music, all kinds of different stuff. So thank you. I appreciate it.
so Zerlaz says the Tor at the end of his name is connected to Thor, Aleister. I don't know.
And Zerlat says, Brandon, you got too much love. Cut that shit out.
And
Nah,
then
it's
he,
fine.
but then he said he was being sarcastic. I was like, well, I didn't notice.
Oh, yeah. See, that's the problem with sarcasm, especially
Yeah.
online, right? You can never tell.
Yeah. Use emojis if you're being sarcastic. Put like a silly face, like, you know, then we'll
That's
know.
cool, though. Oh, glad you pointed that out. Oh, yeah. Lucifer. All right. Cool. Thor.
So did we
Interesting.
finish verse 35? I feel like that went really fast.
Yeah, we did. Well, we've been
Holy.
going for about an hour, so
Oh, oops.
I know it
I
does
didn't
fly
even
by. Let's
notice.
see. We've been live for an hour and six, hour and
Okay.
107:22. All right. All right. So now we're on to verse 36. I'm sharing it, right? Yeah. Okay.
Bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum. All right. Stephen Mitchell from 1988. If you want to shrink something, you must first allow it to expand. If you want to get rid of something, you must first allow it to flourish. If you want to take something, you must first allow it to be given. This is called the subtle perception of the way things are. I love this. The soft overcomes the harsh, the slow overcomes the
Hard.
fast. Oh, the soft overcomes the hard. Yeah. The soft overcomes the hard, the slow overcomes the fast. Let your workings remain a mystery. Just show people the results. Up in here, this is what I read, everybody. Forgot to highlight it. There it is.
Awesome.
All right, I'll
Dwight
highlight it.
Goddard entitles this verse 36 Explanation of a Paradox. That which has a tendency to contract must first have been extended. That which has a tendency to weaken itself must first have been strong. That which shows a tendency to destroy itself must first have been raised up. That which shows a tendency to scatter must first have been gathered. This is the explanation of a seeming contradiction. The tender and yielding conquer the rigid and strong. That is, spirit is stronger than matter, persuasion than force. The fish would be foolish to seek escape from its natural environment. There is no gain to a nation to compel by a show of force. That last sentence I'm going to have to think about again. Let me read that. There is no gain to a nation to compel by a show of force. We'll have to dig into that one in a
Oh, I
bit.
like it. We're talking to you, United States of America. All right, Stan Rosenthal from 1984 entitles this version "Overcoming." His translation. It is the way of the Tao that things which expand might also shrink, that he who is strong will at some time be weak, that he who is raised will then be cast down, and that all men have a need to give and also have a need to receive. The biggest fish the biggest fish stay deep in the pond, and a country's best weapons should be kept locked away. That which is soft and supple may overcome the hard and strong.
Wow, I'm excited to get through these
Yeah.
and expand upon them. All right, Aleister Crowley entitles verse 36, The Hiding of the Light. In order to draw breath, first empty the lungs. To weaken another, first strengthen him. To overthrow another, first exalt him. To despoil another, first load him with gifts. This is called the occult regimen. The soft conquereth the hard, the weak pulleth down the strong. The fish that leaveth ocean is lost. The method of government must be concealed from the people. Now, wow, he's actually being pretty explicit right there.
Yeah.
That's very helpful, actually. And when I read that yesterday, when I was putting these slides together, yeah, I was like, I get that.
You don't want the people who are being mind controlled to know what the mind control is. Right? All right, let's go break these down. If you want to shrink something, you must first allow it to expand. If you want to get rid of something, you must first allow it to flourish. If you want to take something, you must first allow it to be given. This is called the subtle perception of the way things are. So, really, this is just about scales, right? And cycles is really what I'm looking at, right? Everything in this realm expands and shrinks. It's all like in a cycle, right? It all fluctuates. It's always always moving in the physical realm. Excuse me. And one of the
Pendulums. It's like a pendulum.
pendulums, exactly. And one of the things I wanted to point out here, this is first time I came across this verse and I really started listening to it. I thought about this. If you want to get rid of something, you must first allow it to flourish. This reminds me of the United States and the great experiment of freedom. If you want to get rid of something, first allow it to flourish. Here you go, guys. You're free. Good
Here's
luck.
your freedom.
200 years later, 225, 50, whatever it is later, people are, covering their faces, experimental
Oh,
So it's crazy to me that it's so true right here. You let something flourish and then you can get rid of it after that. And I love that. Let's see what else is up here. And the other thing too, if you want to take something, you must first allow it to be given. That's about attachment, right? If you want to be able to take something, you have to allow it. So it's kind of like if you love something, let it go. And if it comes back and it's meant to be, same kind of thing, you can't force it, right?
yeah. So this verse, so when I was putting these slides together, I'd already started watching that Dr. Robert Gilbert interview. So first thing that came to my mind was when he, of course, this just makes me think of balance just in general, right? This whole verse. And like the pendulum that I mentioned earlier, in the sense of like, it's going like this, right? Back and forth, back and forth. And then it finds a center, right? Because it goes on for a bit and then it finds its center. But anyway, what this made me think of, especially if you want to get rid of something, you must first allow it to flourish. He was talking about a lot of spiritual gurus that come from the East, and they might have all these cities, these powers, these abilities, but they don't they don't realize that they never worked out their sexual energy, and they never, because they didn't use it, they didn't even, they repressed it, right, in many ways, because of sometimes that's what, people think you got to do, right? So instead of like exploring it and just letting it happen, they never did that. And so they become tempted, even as these quote spiritual gurus that they think they are, and they become tempted to to do all these things, and like with their students end up being in these weird, relationships with their students because they never worked this out. So anyway, he was saying that, you have to be able to let it flourish, explore it, you know, let it be what it is. It's natural. Um, so that you can let it, what does it say? If you want to get rid of something. So if you don't want it to be a thing, if you want to get rid of um, a bad quote bad habit, or uh, what were we talking about earlier? The whole binging, the drinking, all that stuff. What is that?
Escapism.
Yeah, but what is it called again? Not a habit, but what's the word I'm looking for? I said it earlier.
Compulsion.
Yes, but that's not the word. Anyway, these quote bad habits, if you want to quote get rid of them, you have to first explore them. You first have to let them happen and just be. And then, because with that you get the knowledge. We talked about that. Well, we will talk about this in next week's episode, but that's what it made me think of. And we talk about it
Yeah,
when we
I
talk
like
about
that.
doing it till you're done, vices. Thank you, Joe's here.
Aha.
But yes, that's
What's up?
one of the words. When people are drinking too much, and people are, what is that called, addictions, when people are
Yeah.
trying to get rid of addictions, that's the word I was looking for.
Oh, okay. Yeah, 100%. And again, we're not giving people advice and telling you that if you feel like doing heroin, yeah, just do all the heroin you want. And it's like these are just concepts. You have to figure out how it works for yourself in your own life. That's part of all this work, right? It's all a balance. And what he was saying, we were talking about these spiritual masters coming over here, and then just being thrown off by the sexual thing and getting involved in sexual relationships and stuff. A lot of times when they're over in the East or in India or the Himalayas, as he says instead of Himalayas, I
Tibet.
love that. They're in ashrams, right? They're isolated from people. They're all by themselves and stuff. So it's easier to
Mm-hmm.
work on these. And then when they get surrounded by all these people, beautiful women and men and whatever, they're just like, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's a culture
Yes.
shock, especially when you
Mm-hmm.
come here and everyone's like half naked.
Yeah. And they're covered in robes. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Um, did we read the whole thing, or did we just go into a total?
Yeah. No,
Oh,
we read it. Mm-hmm.
oops.
Okay. We were just finishing breaking down the first part, and
Oh,
then
we're
really,
breaking it down. We're on the breakdown part. Okay,
yeah,
good, because I forgot.
it's all right. Usually it happens to me, but we're taking turns. At least one of us, like I said, at least one of us.
As long as one of us knows.
Yeah.
And maybe they all know too if we ask the chat.
This is called the subtle perception of the way things are. All right, so I'll
Mm-hmm. All right, Dwight Goddard's verse 36 first part of the verse. Explanation of a paradox. There it is, the paradox that we talk about. That which has a tendency to contract must first have been extended. That which has a tendency to weaken itself must first have been strong. That which shows a tendency to destroy itself must first have been raised up. And that which shows a tendency to scatter must first have been gathered. I realize that in this verse, I broke it up a little bit weirdly because maybe this is called the subtle perception of the way things are. Was at the for Stephen Mitchell was in the first part of the verse. I probably should have moved it to the bottom because
Oh,
Dwight
I see.
Goddard says this is the explanation of a seeming contradiction. So, but anyway, we'll move. We'll be fine.
Close enough.
Yeah,
Oops.
yeah. I can fix it on the final slides actually, because Brandon was saying that
So
once we do all of the verses, we can post the final slides somewhere so people can download them.
they'll have 4 versions of the Tao right there.
Yep. So, yeah, there is that paradox again. Um, it's like you can't have one without the other, right? That's the concept there.
It's also kind of making you open your awareness to how things actually work. If you
The
want to get
subtle
something done,
perception that he talks about in Stephen Mitchell.
yes, it's very subtle. Most people get stuck in the world of causes and they're out there trying to stop moving cars in the highway instead of, going to the guy's house and just sabotaging his car when he's sleeping. And then you don't have to worry about the car getting on the highway. It's like, not saying you should do that, but it's a metaphor for if you really want to get things done and you're looking to do these things, you have to look at the cycle of it and know how it works. Then you can have a better understanding of it instead of
Yes,
trying to suppress
absolutely.
things, right? You just
Mm-hmm.
let them run their natural course. All right.
And this reminds me again of the what I was talking about earlier, that it's in that book that I'm reading called Theosophy and Christianity by Henry T. Edge. Um, this concept of it's all part of the plan. One is not bad and one is not good. It's just is, it just is. And so you can have that, the contraction and then the extension. You can have the weakened and then the strong, because you can't have one without the other. And you you have to have that fall to get back up. And it's just part of this 3D experience we're having. So the whole concept of, I know we bash on Christianity, but they do demonize the fall. You're born fallen, you're born evil, you're born with this bad nature. No, it's not. It's nature, it's God. God made us this way. So why is it bad? It's okay. You know, we're experiencing things in this life. Live them,
Yeah, I like
experience them.
100%. And I think these verses are really opening people up to letting you know that nothing is permanent. Things are going to be strong and then they're going to be weak. Things are going to be loud, then they're going to be quiet. It's like just know the rhythm.
There is a time for everything. The Bible even says that.
Yep.
And it does that whole there's a time for strong, there's a time for weak, there's a time for, you know, sadness, there's a time for joy, et cetera, et cetera.
100%. All right, so I'm going to read the Stan Rosenthal first part of this from 1984. Overcoming. It is the way of the Tao that all things which expand might also shrink. That he who is strong at some time will be weak, or sometime be weak. That he who is raised will then be cast down, and that all men have a need to give and also have a need to receive. So
Mm,
pretty much saying the same things, but I do like how he says raised up and cast down because it reminds me of the pit and
in the
the
pedestal.
pedestal that we talk about a lot with when you're raising someone up and they're the best, then someone has to be in the pit. So you have to have somebody that you could point to and make fun of or, uh, you know, judge. And then same thing though with anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Up and down, up and down.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just reminds me of Dr. Robert Gilbert when he's talking about how, he's no guru. He's like, I'm on the path with you guys. I'm like your brother or sister on the path. And that reminds me of Ram Dass. We're all just walking each other home. So
Exactly. No one's
it's
better
not
than
about
anyone else.
telling people I'm the guru, you listen to me, and or at the same time not saying I'm the worst person ever, don't listen to me. No, we're all brothers and sisters walking each other home.
Yeah, and I think the best spiritual masters or teachers who people would consider a guru are the ones who teach with like a riddle. They don't really
Yeah.
point the way.
Jesus, parables.
Yeah, parables. Maharaji with Ram Dass.
I was gonna say Maharaji. That's hilarious. Go ahead.
Because he just acted like the silly old Indian man,
Yes.
and then he would just say profound things every once in a while. And
Yeah.
you'd be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And he had
Exactly.
seemed to know things that he shouldn't be able to know.
Yeah. Right.
Like he
But
was like he had spies places or something.
yeah,
Very interesting.
exactly.
All right, here
Bingo.
I'll
Somebody joined the chat, says bingo. Bingo to what? Thank you for saying that and sharing a smile. I think that's a smile. Welcome, bingo. Welcome to the chat.
what's up, Bingo?
And bingo was his name, oh, or is that a different song?
No, that's it. Bingo.
Yeah, but I think I was singing a different tune. I
Oh,
had the words right, but I think I have the wrong tune. All right. Aleister Crowley entitles verse 36, The Hiding of the Light. In order to draw breath, first empty the lungs. To weaken another, first strengthen him. To overthrow another, first exalt him. To despoil another, first load him with gifts. This is called the occult regimen. I feel like this one was hard. This verse was a little bit hard to break down because, like I said, in Stephen Mitchell's, he says this is called, and then what Dwight Goddard said this is, and so they're all kind of saying it in a way. And Aleister Crowley says it as part of the first part. Maybe I'll move that to the next one for the slides because they're all kind of saying it. So they're all saying it in the same place. But anyway, yeah, in order to draw breath, first empty the lungs. It's a balance. Do you ever say, "Oh my God, inhaling is the worst. It's evil. Exhaling is the best." That's like, please don't inhale, you guys. Only exhale. Like, that's retarded. You need one for the other, right? This is a fantastic example of that. You can't demonize. And so, I'm just going to repeat what Dr. Robert Gilbert was saying on, not that I'm repeating it word for word, but I'm just reiterating what I said earlier that he mentioned on this interview that we watched. But like this Luciferic versus this Ahrimanic principle that we have in our world, in our realm that we encounter daily. We have this light principle and this dark principle. And the light is very spiritual and the dark is very material. So you don't want to go to the extreme, right? You can't. You have to use both. You have to have both. So anyway, there you go. To weaken another, first strengthen him. Brandon was talking about, that earlier. And to overthrow another, first exalt him. That too. Like overthrowing, that's kind of related, I think, too. Like
yeah,
you
exactly.
praising somebody and putting them on this. There you go. There's the pit and pedestal. You
Yep.
praising them like you're the guru, that you get this egoic spiritual ego, like, oh, I'm the best, I'm great. And they talk about that in this interview too, because the interviewer, the guy who interviews Dr. Robert Gilbert at the end, he's like, I was noticing this, lately with people like praising me and telling me that I'm great at, what I do with the podcast and everything. And he's like, you kind of want to get that like spiritual ego of course, I'm paraphrasing him, but that spiritual ego of like, oh, I'm great. I guess I'm great, and but you can't, you have to take that a balanced approach to that. Like Dr. Robert Gilbert was telling him, it's like, it's okay to say, yeah, thank you, I appreciate those kind of words, but don't let them be the thing. And So yeah, when you exalt somebody like that, you put them on this pedestal, right? They're gonna fall. They're going to fall. Something is going to happen, and then you're gonna put them in the pit.
Yeah, and I like how he comes at it where to overthrow somebody. So instead of saying to raise somebody up, you have to overthrow them first. He's like, no, if you want to overthrow them, you exalt them. So it's kind of like, yeah, if you, and that's cool because if you have an enemy or whatever, somebody where you're trying to, you don't get along with or whatever it is, instead of bashing them, you just praise them, right? You're like, sure, just
Yeah.
lift them up and praise them. You give them enough rope to hang themselves, basically, is
Yes,
what they're
and they
saying,
will
right?
fall.
Yeah.
Humpty
Uh,
Dumpty.
yeah. Oh, I was thinking about that in the store the other day. Humpty Dumpty, because nobody ever gets that, I don't think, but it's like, Humpty Dumpty, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. It's because he had to put himself back
I
together.
knew I was gonna say that. That's freaking
I think I've
hilarious.
said that before on the show
Really? I don't remember that.
a while ago. Yeah,
Well,
maybe
I was gonna
said
say it
it.
too. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
no, it's so true though. It's something I realized a while ago, and it sticks with me because it's like merrily, 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 row, row, row your boat gently down the
Life is
stream.
better.
Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. It's all these little kids sayings that are passed down through the generations. They have so much knowledge in them, but they're so simple. You know,
Mm-hmm. Well,
it's like they
that
tried to instill this stuff in us.
that last bit, he says to despoil another, first load him with gifts. Materialism, you
That
know?
also reminds me of like in a movie where it happens a lot in like the in the Pacific, like the South Pacific on these islands. Like somebody will be shipwrecked and come across an island, find a bunch of natives, and the natives like dress them up and feed them all this stuff, and they're like, "Oh, this is great." And then the next thing you know, they're going to be sacrificed into the volcano,
Hmm.
right?
Right, right,
They're loading
right.
them with gifts.
Yeah. Um, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something about that. With the material, the whole material thing. Um, yeah. So you load them with gifts, you do the material, but you know what? Maybe that gets them to doing it till it's done, right? Because it will, they'll have a great fall, right? And they'll maybe have a dark night of the soul and they'll wake up and be like, wait, what's up with all these? Wait, what? Like you're gonna put me into this you're gonna put me into this volcano? Like, oh, I get it now. Maybe.
Maybe it also kind of reminds me of giving money to homeless people that are like
Yes.
asking for money. Because
Yes.
when I used to work in downtown New Haven, Connecticut, you'd see the same people asking for money, and like some of them have like decent shoes. I'm like, this guy's not
Yes.
homeless,
Right.
but people would say, "Oh, don't give him money. He's just gonna go drink with it." And it's like, well, what? Here's $5. Go get hammered. Like
Yeah.
enjoy. Yeah,
Like
do until you're done. Maybe he's probably a
I have
doctor.
I have been, I mean, I don't do this all the time, but there's been times where I had in the past like just given them like a 20, here. God bless you. You know what I mean? I haven't done it in a while, but like I've done
Do
that
whatever,
before.
do with it as you will.
I'm like, I was just gonna go buy something at Marshall's that I don't need anyway. So you know what? You can have it.
I have enough tarot decks. Here, you take this. I might have talked about this in the show, but one time I went to Tampa around like 2017, 2018, and I was down there, and I went out when I was like playing poker and stuff. But one night I went because I wanted to do some comedy. I wanted to do an open mic, and I was looking around, and these people asked me for money. I was in front of this place that said they had an open mic like online, but it was like out of business. I'm like, great. It was like in a downtown little walking around area. And these people are like, oh, do you have any money? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I could, they're like, we're hungry. And I'm like, well, I could buy you food if you want. He's like, sure. I was
Yeah.
like, all right. So there's a place right across the street with slices of pizza. We walked over there. I bought him pizza. It was like $1 something a slice. Sure,
Nice.
dude. Here, good luck. And right as I walked out of the pizza place, I pretty much bumped into a guy passing out flyers for a comedy open mic show that he was doing down the street. And I'm like, oh, can I perform? He's like, hell yeah. So
There you
you
go.
never know,
Win-win.
right? You never know.
Win-win. You fed someone and then you got the tip to the place that you needed to go to.
That's right. It would have been funny if he's like, we just want to get drunk. I would have been like, let's go, man. Let's get hammered. Let's get hammered with the homeless guy. I'm
Second
like,
half, verse
Jesus.
36.
Yeah, let's do it.
Stephen Mitchell.
Stephen Mitchell. The soft overcomes the hard, the slow overcomes the fast. Let your workings remain a mystery. Just show people the results. So the first part, we kind of been beating this down. We get it. The soft overcome the hard, the slow overcome the fast. But this part right here, let your workings remain a mystery. Just show people the results. Now, this is great. This is kind of like with the Oversharing show, right? Sometimes we have episodes where we'll have a meeting, just me and Sharon, we're on Zoom, put notes together for like a couple hours hanging out. We used to do a lot more in the beginning. We did it for next week's episode, so go check it out. But that's our inner working. We didn't tell anybody about that. We don't show them the notes. We just do the show, boom, and that's what it is. Same thing for like a comedian or whatever, or a magician, right? A magician's not up there pulling rabbits out of his hat, and then he's not going to show you how he does it, right? So that also kind of reminds me of like if you are a spiritual person and you are into the Tao or whatever it is that you're into, and it gives you this vibration and people are attracted to you, it doesn't mean that you have to tell everybody what you did and how you got there and this is what they have to do. This is my inner working. That was my path. You guys are just seeing the finished product. If you want to do it, well then go look into it yourself. Go watch the Oversharing show. I mean, that's a good guide for you. But yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. Same thing
Yeah.
with like a chef, a master chef. You just get the dish. You're not in the back with the
Yeah.
chef watching him make the dish. You're not watching him drop the steak on the floor, like floor, floor spice. All right.
Yeah, I like it too. Good call.
Yeah,
Dwight
I
Goddard?
almost, yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
almost was like, we pretty much covered that. But then that last part, I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So in the final slides, I'll probably move this explanation. I'll just move that to the top one because I think that makes more sense. So, but I'll read
Oh,
it
okay.
right now. This is the explanation of a seeming contradiction. So here's the part that Brandon kind of read. The tender and yielding conquer the rigid and strong. That is, spirit is stronger than matter, persuasion than force. Mm. The fish would be foolish to seek escape from its natural environment. There is no gain to a nation to compel by a show of force. So, okay. All right. We'll just start from the beginning. So, the
All right.
tender and yielding conquer the rigid and strong.
Yep.
That's like kind of what Steve Mitchell was saying with those first two,
Mm-hmm.
right? But he's giving more of an explanation with the parenthesis of that is, spirit is stronger than matter. And in the case of, like how we were talking about earlier, that there's, you can't have one without the other, right? There's a balance, right? But I get what this is saying by the spirit is stronger than matter because we're inherently spirit, like divine beings. We are just clothed with matter. We're clothed with a material physical body.
Yep.
So but we're still living in this realm. So it's kind of like be in the world but not of it type of thing, which I think Jesus or something in the New Testament says.
Mm-hmm.
um and then the persuasion is stronger than force. Yeah, because it's a mental thing, the mind. So it's kind of like what Dr. Robert Gilbert was talking about with that NLP. Like, and it's like kind of like what Brandon was talking about with the what's going on with the country at the moment, you know? they've
Yep.
been kind of mentally programmed. And so now there's no need for like a physical force necessarily because they're already mentally um conquered. They're mentally persuaded. So
Do you remember when microwaves started becoming like kind of popular?
like
I
what,
mean, I guess
80s
they've
or
existed
90s
probably
or
since like the 60s or 70s, but like in the 80s, they really started to kind of get everywhere. Well, just imagine if the government came out and said, you must have a microwave. You need to buy your microwave now. I bet less people would buy one than instead,
yes,
just having great commercials, right? That's the
right,
persuasion aspect versus the
exactly,
force. You have all the
exactly.
commercials and the look, hey, this is what you want. You want to afford. It's
N-
not, no, you must do this. So that's why it is interesting anytime you see the government tell you that you have to do something. And it's funny with this whole what happened in 2020 thing because there was really no force. It was all persuasion. The force was just perceived. Like
mhm.
like somebody we know who's a very famous live streamer always said, the government never mailed me a mask. You know what I mean? Like it's so true. Like they didn't.
Never heard that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, Owen used to say that. He's like,
Oh
it's
my
a
God.
it's not the government that's doing it; it's the persuasion. Uh,
Hmm. That's true.
yep.
So the next part says the fish would be foolish to seek escape from its natural environment, right? Um, the fish doesn't want to leave the water. That's how it lives.
Another
It's
thing too, Sharon, on that, we have to get out of this realm. This realm is
yes,
evil prison.
yes, the demiurge, you know, this whole like the kind of the not fantastic Gnostic way of looking at it.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? Like the whole
yeah.
the victimy way of
Yahweh
looking at
is the devil, and he has us
Yes.
all trapped here, kind of thing. Well, it's
Yes.
like this
Yes.
is our medium. This is our realm, man. Like this is where we belong at this moment, in this moment.
Hmm. Be
Maybe
in
the
the world, but
fish,
not of it.
yeah, and maybe the fish one day will transcend and become a flying fish, and then he can fly out of the water. But until then, he's the water's your medium.
Maybe he'll
Don't
evolve
be
and grow
comfortable. Yeah, and grow legs and
grow legs and arms and wings.
evolve. It's funny because the word evolution is so perfect
Messed
for
up.
what it is. But
It
well, yeah.
right. But
So
it's
the
just the
theory of evolution, yeah, the
go ahead,
theory
you
of evolution,
go.
a little, what's going on here? Do we come from monkeys? But the word, because evolution is such a great word, because you can have an evolution of like the Oversharon show. Like, look at the evolution of the Oversharon show as it's evolved. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, the word evolution and evolving has been kind of co-opted by scientism, right? Um, but I
Darwin.
still use it, and I'll say that when I say I'm like I don't believe in the evolution, but evolution definitely exists. Like things evolve, just not.
Yeah.
I don't think fish
Not the
grow
way we
legs.
were told.
I mean. Also, there's never been any evidence of any kind of bacteria or any single cell organism evolving, even though those things reproduce so fast that it would represent like millions of years in our lives to study them, right? If you study them for even like say you study them for 30 or 40 years, it's like millions of years of studying humans because of their life cycles. That makes sense, everybody. All right. Anyway, this isn't what this is about. Maybe it is. Maybe we did come from monkeys. I'm not going to sit here and uh, it's funny because that guy uses the phrase monkey mind. That doctor said that, but I don't think he was saying it because of evolution.
Yeah. Okay, wait, hold on. We're not done
Yes,
because
you're
we
right.
did
Go ahead.
finish. So then we have you have the other part highlighted, but so that last bit, there is no gain to a nation to compel by a show of force. That is the wording is just hard to uh, comprehend grammatically the way it's written. Um, so okay, the first part is easy to understand. There is no gain to a nation. Like I get that. So it's not useful. It's not gainful for a nation. Okay, to compel by a show of force, to compel
Yes.
people by showing
Yes.
force. So it
Yes.
doesn't benefit the nation
Hmm.
to compel people by force.
That's right.
Nice.
Exactly. Just like I said about the microwaves. If the United States government came out in 1984, when microwaves just started becoming huge and was like, you must buy a microwave. You must have a microwave to be a U.S. citizen or whatever. People would be like, fuck you, I ain't getting no microwave. There'd probably be a whole anti microwave movement because people would think there was something wrong with microwaves, right? But it snuck in through the back door because you see it on TV and it's so great. And you can have your hot pocket and wow, I can make dinner in 10 minutes. Um, yeah. And again, I don't have a microwave in my house. I don't, if you want to have a microwave, it's fine. I'm not going to disparage people. I used to think that they were harmful and they can hurt you. I don't really know. I've seen evidence go both
Yeah.
ways. Who really
Right.
knows? But
Right.
the thing I do know about microwaves is that not having one makes me take the time to actually prepare things right. And sometimes if I'm hungry and I don't really feel like cooking a bunch of stuff, I'm just like, I'll just eat something little instead of eating a bunch of things that wouldn't be good for me. So it's
Like
just
hot
made me
pockets.
healthier. Like hot pockets. We used to eat those in the Marines all the time. Oh my God. Do you ever eat a hot pocket? Oh no, what's his name already did it? Jim Gaffigan. Yeah, he already did that whole bit where he's like, you like it's cold, but then you bite into it, and the center is like lava. You're just like, I've had that experience before. I bit in, and it was the hottest thing I've ever had. It felt like
Oh
somebody
my
just like
God.
stuck a cigarette on my
That's
lip. It
gross.
was crazy. Yeah, it was fun. But anyway, that's my microwave thing. So enjoy
Yeah.
your microwave.
And I
Whatever.
will say that I do have a microwave. It came with the house and it's part of the whatever, part of the kitchen, but I use it sometimes. And so the heck what? Like
Yeah, that's
every
what I'm
once in a
saying.
while,
Yeah,
I do use it. But,
I'm sure it has, there's definitely some uses you can use for it and stuff like that. So
yeah, I mean,
but I bet if the
I'm
microwave
not
came out in 19,
attached to the whole concept of either. Go ahead.
yeah, I was just saying, but I bet if I said I bet if the microwave, I meant to say, I bet if the government came out in 1984 and was like, you must buy a microwave, there'd be like anti-microwave movements. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what it is. You need to use persuasion because force never works.
Hmm.
You can use force to subdue people for a time, but then you're just inviting revolution,
I
in
was just
my
going to say, I use it, but I'm not attached to using it or not using it.
yeah. If I
It
ever visit your house, you have to cook something in the microwave for me just to be like,
let you know. I'll let you know. I don't use it for cooking necessarily. Like it's just like reheating something quickly if,
yeah.
but mostly I use a toaster oven for reheating or reheating on the stove top.
Well, we're gonna get microwave comments now. Just
Yeah.
kidding. We're on both sides of that, so we're good.
Yeah.
All right, let's go down here. It's Stan Rosenthal, the second part here. The biggest fish stay in the deep pond, and a country's best weapons should be kept locked away. That which is soft and supple may overcome the hard and strong. This is a little more cryptic because he
Mm-hmm.
just says the country's best weapons should be, kept locked away. It doesn't say why or anything like that. It just kind of gives you but that's the advantage of having four other versions to break it down and to cross reference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, everything there is pretty much what we've been saying. The biggest
Yeah.
fish stay deep in the pond. Okay, so the biggest fish
Yeah.
stay deep in
Well,
the pond.
they're
Let's take a look at
hiding from the little fish that they eat above.
yeah, that too. Yep.
And there's the country's best weapons should be kept locked away. So their biggest, most threatening weapons, keep them locked away. They don't, they don't need to be shown that they have all this force, right?
So the Tao is actually arguing against open carry, right? The Tao's like, don't open carry your weapon, your
Exactly.
pistol,
Exactly.
conceal it. You
Conceal
don't want
carry.
people to know. Yeah,
Please
conceal.
conceal carry.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be great. They should. Well, look at it. Where is it in England? They don't. But in London, they don't carry guns, right? The police. All right, you want to take a crack at this part here, the Aleister Crowley?
Yes. All right, last bit here. Verse 36, Aleister Crowley, second part. The soft conquereth the hard, the weak pulleth down the strong. The fish that leaves the ocean is lost. The method of government must be concealed from the people. All right, hold on. Did we talk about the occult regimen? Did we talk about this?
Yeah, it's funny because I wanted to say something about that, so I'm glad you said that. So this is called the occult regimen, right? So if you look above, in order to draw a breath, first empty the lungs. So he's kind of giving you the occult. And what is the occult? The occult is what's hidden, it's unseen. This is the hidden regimen, the hidden order of things, the way
Stephen
things work.
Mitchell calls it the subtle perception of the way things are.
Yep. So when something's subtle, it's kind of hidden. It's not out
Kind of
there, right?
occult.
So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's occult. So he's kind of telling you this is the hidden way things work.
Mm-hmm.
Subtly hidden. Glad you
Yeah.
said that. And then we get into the soft conquer the hard, the weak pull down the strong. We've talked about that. But here the fish that leaveth the ocean is lost.
Like
So
we were saying in the other one,
yep.
right? So like if it's like, oh, we need to leave this realm. I can't wait to, it's kind of like the people that are like, I can't wait for the rapture. You know, it's like, you'll be
Can't wait
lost
to go
then.
to 5D, man. I'll see you in 5D. What about 3D, dude, and 4D? You
Have
got
you
some stuff.
finished working on 3D?
If you're still here, I don't know, maybe you're ascended master and you're Christ incarnate, but maybe you're not. Maybe you're just fucking Ralph, and you better work on your shit. I don't know. We're not telling you how to live, everybody. All right.
All right, so let's see. The method of government must be concealed from the people. So he's saying what Stan Rosenthal was saying by a country's best weapon should be kept locked away.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think about that? Why do you think it's saying that? Because you could take that two ways. What is the Tao trying to say about that?
The method, the what Alistair's saying right now, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I think that in order for so if you look at what government means, right, mind control, in order for the mind control to work on people, you have to keep it hidden from them. They
Okay.
can't know
Okay.
what you're doing. So
Exactly. Got it.
you can look at this as a good thing or as a bad thing. And if you're looking at it in a non-victimy way, people hate the government. They're like, you got to destroy and bring down the government. That's kind of like a victim way to look at it. But if you're looking at
Mm-hmm.
it in a victor way, you could say, yeah, you know what? Some people need big daddy
Need
government to tell them what to
absolutely.
do. And if
Yes.
that's the case, then the government needs to keep their mouth shut about how they do.
Yes. It's kind of like, and I think I was reading this in that book that I'm telling you about, that I was telling you about, Theosophy and Christianity, about, gosh darn it, I lost my train of thought. What were you just saying?
The government concealing the way they control people.
Yeah, because
Like, so,
like when you have, and maybe I was reading it somewhere else, maybe because I've been also like looking into Blavatsky and like what she wrote about. So anyway, I read it somewhere. It may have been that Theosophy book by that I posted the link to. But yeah, all these methods of, you know, reaching enlightenment or whatever, right? These spiritual topics, they stay occulted because some people just can't, you can't, it's like Jesus did. He's like, he gave the parables to the people who weren't going to get it, like the material people. They just got the little parable with the story of the seeds and the plants, and you plant this seed in this ground, and this is what happens. You plant, but to the learned, to the initiates, the people were being who were studying it a little more in depth, they were the ones who were taught the deeper meaning, the spiritual meaning. So what you just said made me think of that, and I can't remember what my point was. Something like that.
well, it kind of goes along with just existing in the world. You know, you don't have to hate the government, even though they could be perceived as evil and they do terrible things. Right? It's just another force that's on this planet, if you
Yeah.
will,
Um,
or
one
in
thing
this
I,
realm.
one
God,
thing I was gonna say is that and PK reminded me because he's like, I was just about to ask, but I looked it up. 81 versus total. You guys are almost halfway there. And I was noticing that too as I was putting the slides together yesterday. We're almost at the halfway point, and so I thought I'd mention that.
nice. Yeah, 81, just like the Hells Angels. That's their number 81. In 18, which is the inversion of 81, is 3 sixes. And what's 666 known as, right? And 18, and what's 18 is a 9. It's the
9.
ego. Yep. Blue Kachina, not to alarm anyone, but you're probably being microwaved right now. I hope so, because it's cold in here.
Wait, who? Where? Oh, no.
Oh, I like the
uh,
three to the third power. Magic Square of the Sun. Nice connection. Thank you. What's up?
Magic Square of the Moon. Oh, Magic Square of the Sun. Never mind. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Yep, it's evil. Don't look at that sun. Robo Honky, what's up? My dog weighs 66.6 pounds. I bet he does. Illuminati confirmed. What a great bunch of fans we have. I just love watching our chat.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Got moon and sun squares hitting up in there, both 81 and 18. Greetings. Yeah, the
Oh,
Hells Angels, man. That's their number, 81. My family had dealings when I was younger. They used to, my uncles, I think, used to hang out with Hells Angels.
the
So
moon
I
and
know all about
sun
that.
thing. The moon and sun thing reminds me of something you told me one time when you were watching an Archaics video. I don't think I ever got to watch it, but he was talking about how the sun and moon are represented in all these ancient, depictions, and maybe not super ancient, but like these older depictions, and
Well,
especially
like
in
the occult ones, and like
yeah,
he was talking about like the Freemason tracing boards, which are just like pictures of like stairs and people in the sun and all that stuff and ladders. Yeah, go ahead though.
yeah. And so you said that his breakdown of what the meanings of those two symbols were is not what we have now. Like the occulted meaning was, I believe it was like the law and uh when I broke it down the way I understand it is like church and state, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
So
the physical power and the spiritual power kind of thing.
yeah, good call.
Interesting.
So it
Yeah,
kind of reminds
that's
me of
why
what we're talking about.
symbolism, you really, there's so many layers to it. That's why I just love it.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's awesome.
do we finish breaking this down? Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like we
Yeah, government must be concealed from the people. Yeah,
time
there it
flew
is.
by.
Wow, yeah,
Um,
we've been going for over 2 hours now, or just at 2 hours. 157. All right, we're gonna keep this one to 2 hours. Look at us.
yeah, yeah.
Let's
I
go.
usually read the ending of this, but I won't today.
Are you
It's
sure?
yeah, it's a lot to read, I think,
Okay.
unless you insist.
Now it's have we read it? We might have read it before because have we pulled that card
Yeah,
before?
maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, I want to show you this funny cup that I have my friend Karen gave to me.
Yeah,
You can't
look
see
at
the
it.
letters, but it says I was not made to be subtle.
Oh.
And you can't see the letters because they're
Oh,
orange on pink.
nice. I like it. Not made to be subtle.
Hmm.
Awesome. Well, again, everybody, remember, make sure you check us out next week because we have episode 99 coming out. And, it's not even our 99th episode. We just had a weird numbering system. Most of you guys already know. And I was thinking, and Sharon agreed that a lot of people have, their 100th episode and they celebrate it. But I was like, let's celebrate 99 in true over Sharon fashion. It's a 99. So we're doing kind of like an old school over Sharon. We're bringing it back to basics, and I'm really excited about it. I feel like it's going to be a podcast you could send to anybody. The way that it starts off, we start off really cool. We give some disclosures at the beginning, and so we're trying not to offend anyone in the beginning. So at least maybe they'll watch that part of it.
And
So
we'll
I'm
finish
excited.
recording at some point because we still
Yes,
have
we have a
the
little bit
last
left
bit
to
left.
record because I had to run off to the dentist with my lovely love. So yeah, it's cool though because I didn't we planned it. We gave ourselves allotted ourselves. That's where I was looking about 2 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes, but we went over that, which was cool because we were really oversharing in that episode. So I'm excited about it. Um, of course, the best way to support us is to go to morelawsmoreproblems.com, click on the oversharing tab for all your oversharing wants, needs, and desires. And well, really, the best way to support us is to just show up here when we're live, hang out during our premieres, hit thumbs up, share, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Share and share alike.
Share and share alike. Listen to our audio version if you're
Overshare.
into this podcast. You can do that. And yeah, shout out to the chat again once more. Let's see if there's any cool things we can share
Yes.
before we get out of here.
Thanks, guys.
The Taoists, the Taoists like their magic squares. Faux show, very popular in the East. Nice. I like it. All right. Well, what do we say to the good people, Sharon?
That once you start oversharing,
Then you totally stop being a Karen.
that's right.
And remember, we're not trying to tell you how to live.
I'm going to be changing these. I'm going to see if I can change the endings lately. So I'm going to say we're just trying to show you how to live a little bit more mindfully. Could it be?
There you go. All right, everybody. Thanks again. Overshare, share on, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
Bye. And we're done.